I don't think this is on anyone's bingo card for the year, but here we are, after all this time. 7 whole years leaves a lot of room to remember, recall, and reminisce on everything, really. Unanswered questions, retcons, theories, but most importantly, Easter eggs, callbacks, and incredibly small details. Who knows, maybe my dad will come back with milk next, huh? Spoiler warnings too, quite obviously, not just for issue 7, but all the TF2 comics. Starting off, we have the cover of the comic, or covers, as I should say. The TF2 comics have never been a stranger for parodying other real-world comics before, and number 7 isn't any different, referencing Batman Volume 1, 404. Bruce Wayne's parents being killed right in front of him in Crime Alley is obviously the catalyst, cause, and creation that led to him becoming Batman. In contrast, the Administrator's parents' death here is essentially the entire catalyst for the entire Team Fortress franchise as a whole. We'll discuss the significance of the 3 different covers later, but for now let's shine a light on some small details in them. The most standout thing is the Administrator's father here, who appears to have been wearing a brilliant pile of stacked hats. It's a bit of a reference to the Gentleman of Leisure, now having more hats is a clear sign of being rich and not Irish, much like how hats in-game are totally a sign of skill. On the third version of the cover, the one where her parents appear to be poisoned, we can make out a couple interesting designs on the scattered blueprints. We got a weird looking gun, a robotic hand, a Gatling gun with a baby's face on it for complete nightmare fuel, a Swiss Army's shotgun I guess, and a sandwich stuck in jello. Jumping forward a few pages here to where Merasmus is revealed, he quotes soldiers to poor old Diego over here with pain as weakness leaving the body. The tattoo on his left bicep also appears to be Tom Jones' face, his ex-roommate and future ghost buddy. This one poster behind him, while hard to see and make out, reads, "Have a seance to remember loved ones by." Smoke and mirrors? Why yes, it is. T-Bone is also technically a reoccurring character as well, although his design is completely different from his first appearance, first showing up in the Grave Matters comic. On the next page we see a very familiar looking shovel, details you may have missed, just sue me for false advertising I guess. Now I don't read or speak ancient Eldritch Sumerian demon ruins, but I can look at the pictures of them, and that there is a certified zombie bear, which is likely a little callback to Comic Free, A Cold Day in Hell. Flashing back to the end of issue 6 here, we can see Zahana's engagement ring is actually the pin of the grenade Soldier had just 2 seconds ago. After Saxton Hale steals the actual good working plane to go back and reclaim ownership of Manco, the Mercs are forced to use a rundown Cessna that looks like it survived the bloody Bermuda Triangle. Sniper and Pauling are flying the plane, Heavy looks incredibly fed up with his life as Demo passes out on his shoulder, Medic and the baby baboon he helped birth in issue 6 are peeking out the window while Soldier, Scout, and Spy are all crammed and huddled together in the back seat. Pyro, on the other hand, is actively trying to get around Sniper and the front of the plane's propeller to get a better glimpse of the engine fire, which is a nice touch and the only time Pyro gets a spotlight in this issue. One person not present for this entire sequence and scene though is Zahana, who doesn't appear again until the Smithmas end sequence at all. I guess they just left her behind on Gray Man's Island. Moving inside the base itself now though, a lot of people have already gone over and discussed the importance of this statue here, which actually ties back into Team Fortress Classic from issue 6, with Team Fortress Classic's Heavy claiming how Greyman had them hunt down the Administrator's best teams for the past 6 months. Currently the known team names are Ajax, Echelon, and Citadel. There's also a plaque where the F used to be, showing that Team Fortress used to be a bit better before it was filled with sex offenders, war criminals, and illiterate idiots. A lot of people don't notice the 2 crates people are pushing around in the background though, whose colors line up to those of the Powerhouse and Concealed Killers crates. These 2 crates in particular were the first ones added in the Gunmetal update way back when in 2015. We can even get a better look at these crates in the update comic, The Contract. In short, the weapons in these crates cost like $1 bajillion. I mean, just like how expensive a factory new sand launcher rocket launcher goes for. They aren't that far off. On the next page over, we can see Pyro and Demo both looking at posters of much more successful mercenaries, with Demo's even being that statue out in the front hall. As the mercenaries descend downwards to where the Administrator resides, Scout pauses for a moment and has the whole "there's always another fish in the sea" talk with Miss Pauling. Hilariously enough though, you can see Spy behind Sniper checking his watch for how much longer this talk is going to go on for. We've finally reached the main chunk of the story, the big backstory for the Administrator. And there are a lot of little secrets, callbacks, and references to be had here. The first one is actually shown in the first panel of the flashback. This red-haired woman is Patience Merriweather, an extremely minor character in the lore. She's a midwife who helped Redmond, Bluetarch, and Gray's mother, Betty Mann, give birth. Her first appearance was in the Blood Brothers comic back in 2012, although her name wouldn't be revealed until a hidden ARG birth certificate for the Mann brothers, which was found sometime later. While Zephaniah Mann ruins the one and only statue everyone can name, there are a couple of books in the corner of the panel. The bottom book is titled, So You've Just Purchased Rodin's Father's The Thinker. The middle book is titled, Bronze vs. Alabaster, Knowing the Difference. And the final book is The Big Book of Knowing When Rodin Was Born. For those unaware, Auguste Rodin was a French sculptor whose influence and impact on the arts rivals those of Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo. His most famous statue, obviously being The Thinker. Rodin was born in 1840. This flashback takes place in September of 1822. That last little book is a little tongue-in-cheek reference back to the future style time paradox joke on what's actually going on here. During Zephaniah's and the Administrator's tour of the Mann family mausoleum, Zephaniah says he's an only son. Zephaniah actually does have a brother by the name of Silas Mann, who is also encounterable in Game 2. Silas Mann is really just a footnote in terms of actual impact to the lore and story he has though. His free contributions are that he's the reason TF2 has loot boxes, inventing keys, in addition to name tags. Silas is actually holding them on his brother's deathbed in the singular photo we have of him. There's also the picture on the fireplace that's framed, which hard confirms the two are related as brothers, showing both Silas and Zephaniah in 1827, 5 years after the birth of the Mann triplets. And yes, I know, there's another person in this photo, but we'll go into that later, okay? The much more noticeable impact Silas has on TF2 is in his reincarnated soul coming back as the Headless Horseless Horseman each Scream Fortress to haunt Mann Manor, further confirming and tying him into the Mann family. So, what's the deal then? Did the writers just forget about him? Well, I'm not even sure about that though. Someone emailed Jay Pinkerton regarding the plot and story of issue 7 and some other behind the scenes information, and he mentioned Silas Mann by name, explaining how he would have had a slightly bigger role along with a lot of other obscure characters like Barnabas Hale and fleshing out the Administrator's backstory before scrapping it completely. Obviously, there's a chance or potential this email is fake, but even then, what's the deal with Silas here? The most simple answer here that still respects the current story is that Zephaniah Mann, and the Mann family in general, with their thirst of power to be the best like no one ever was, simply hates his fucking brother's guts like everyone else in the Mann family seemingly does. Flash forward 27 years later to 1850 in a small little town known as Two Fort, New Mexico, there's a lot to unpack in these few panels and pages. On this overlook with the Administrator on the balcony, we can catch a glimpse of the original 1850s heavy demo sniper and potentially the scout and medic too. The original team was first shown in a framed photo in Bluetarch's office in the Loose Cannon comic. On the water tower, Two Fort's original town name Hugginsville, founded by Claude Huggins, can be seen. The town was founded on the very same spot where a bear mauled his wife, from which he cowardly hid from said bear by using her corpse as a hiding spot. In 1847 though, a bunch of wandering teen bullies made him change the name to Two Fart, where the name was never changed in fear they might come back, and apparently graffitied to be seen 3 years later. Eventually though, the town would go on to be known as Two Fort. We can see a statue dedicated to Claude in issue 2, Unhappy Returns, with the history of the town being shared in issue 3, A Cold Day in Hell. On the next page over, Zephaniah Mann writes out his last will and testament. We've actually known exactly what he's written down for quite some time now, but despite that, there is a bit of a retcon or writing error with it as well. In short, Zephaniah condemns his two moronic sons, Bluetarch and Redmond, for bringing him over to America, where he caught literally every disease known to man, in addition to wasting nearly his entire fortune on worthless sand, leaving the two of them to fight over the land until one emerges victorious. He leaves the family company of Mann & Sons Munition Co. to Barnabas Hale, descendant of Saxton Hale, which eventually would become Mann Co. As for the rest of his fortune, all debts public and private, his estate and tobacco plantation, he would leave to the Administrator, in addition to his cache of what he calls miracle gravel, betterwise known as Australium. There's just one odd thing about the will though that does conflict with issue 7, and that's in regards to Grayman. The end of the will seems to inform the Administrator that Gray is coming for the cache of Australium he left behind. However, later on, the administrator seems surprised to realize Gray is actually alive. 1 year later in 1851, we can see the administrator living the lavish life in Man Manor. The picture above the bed frame is a clear reference to the famous painting of Archangel Michael defeating Satan. We can also see she buried Zephaniah not in the mausoleum he was meant to be placed in originally, but instead the shanty small grave right outside of it. Fittingly, Zephaniah's own words on the matter pair quite nicely to his fate here. As Grey Man enters the manor, we can see the new Finker with a slightly larger head has finally been delivered. A couple years late for that though, I feel. And the final detail to be shown in this flashback sequence, when Grey Man revives the administrator back from the dead, we can actually see a single streak of her hair dye and go grey, representing how her hair looks throughout the rest of the series. We snap back to 1972 with the administrator finishing her flashback and recapping to a husk of a human that is Zephaniah Mann, surrounded by several monitors displaying inward, revealing what is essentially hell on earth for him. Visually though, it's very striking to Miss Pauling's near-death scene at the start of issue 6, and the thematic irony of the situation isn't lost on me either. You can actually make out some of the maps shown on the screens too, funnily enough. Viaduct, Upward, Badlands, even Egypt among others that I can't quite make out. Really though, if you want to destroy the man's spirit, just permanently put on 2 Fort or High Tower on those monitors. He was forced to watch Whatville, bro. We can see everyone's reaction from being in the same room as Brendan Fraser's The Mummy. Scout, Pauling, Sniper, Demo, Pyro, and Spy all seem to be in a state of shock, awe, and disbelief. Soldier even peeks a little bit under his helmet at what's actually going on. Medic seems a bit genuinely invested and interested with a smile on his face on what's happening, and Heavy does not care. And finally, the big reveal. The reason why the Team Fortress franchise is where it is right now. A long 7-year wait for this reveal. I forgot.
That's it? That's the last episode?
It's a depth of blood that's been carrying on for 150 years. She can't recall exactly what Zephaniah did to her, resulting in 3 entirely different comic covers to potentially explain some motive. We know for sure that whatever happened when the administrator was a young girl, which isn't just revealed in this comic's cover, but hinted at previously at the end of issue 6 as well, where she sees her reflection as a young girl crying in the last capsule of Australium. As the administrator and Zephaniah slowly turn to dust, we can see Medic actually step forward in an attempt to help, only to be held back by Heavy. Sniper and Soldier even take their hat and helmet off as a sign of respect. We now come back to Soldier Merasmus being tortured by the Korean Mafia for owing money. Soldier pulls out a fairly familiar looking family photo, which I will now happily dive deeper into. Originally this photo was split into 2 halves. The first photo was this main family one. We got Barnabas Hale, Redmond, Blutarch, Zephaniah on his first deathbed, and the administrator, in addition to a good boy lying on the ground. Of course, on the ripped seam and edge, there's another person standing there. Originally this person was theorized to be Silas Mann, but as we now know, the second half of the photo shows him. So who on God's green earth is this guy supposed to be? Truthfully, it's no one. No one anymore anyways. Soldier's thumb sort of covers up where this character would be, but personally I feel it's just an attempt to retcon and write out whoever this was since their impact on the story isn't anything special. If you want to put on your tinfoil hats though, there's really only one character who it could potentially be without it being someone we've never heard of before, and that's the descendant of Charles Darling's family. Believe it or not, I actually made a video about this very topic 4 years ago. Jesus, how time flies, huh? For those who don't know who Charles Darling is, I don't blame ya. It's been 7 years, and he's a minor character who's largely tied in with Saxton Hale and Mags rather than any of the mercenaries. To sum it up, he trained Saxton Hale before the two had a falling out, with Saxton Hale focusing on working for the administrator and procuring more Australium, and continuing the pointless blood feud between the Mann brothers. Eventually though, he promises to help Hale get Manco back at the cost of Australium so he can make all the depressed animals he has living in his zoo from going extinct, because their sad, defeated eyes just bring him so much joy. I guess this guy just loves to kick puppies too, I guess. Anyways, one of Charles Darling's ancestors, a man by the name of William Darling, is actually the father of Betty Mann, the mother of the Mann triplets, making Charles Darling distantly related to Redmond, Plutarch, and Gray, and also giving him some insight on immortality, Australium, and the administrator's identity. Does this go anywhere now, though? No. With the comic and story all wrapped up, it clearly doesn't, hence why this guy most likely got retconned out. Coming back to the stuff that actually matters and is important now though, in Hale's office we can see a photo of Saxton's dad, Bilious Hale. He isn't too noteworthy in the greater scheme of the game's story and lore though. Really, if you want to know more about him, just go play MVM on Coaltown. The entire map is dedicated to him. This throwaway line by Soldier about ghost law and ghosts having to haunt the location they died in seems like a stupid joke, but Soldier actually does have past experience in dealing with ghost law as shown in the Grave Matters comic. Finally, we reach the last few pages of the story, and the most heartwarming of them. In Scout's home, we can see a couple photos he's put up of his kids on the right, and a photo of him and his mom on the left. When Scout shows his injuries to Spy, we can still see the misspelt sex bomb tattoo on his chest, in addition to a framed picture of Tom Jones in the background. When Scout goes to open the front door and let everyone in, you can see Sniper's camper van and the Sandman on the lawn. This confirms the Sandman will be majorly buffed in the upcoming Heavy update, guys, for real. When everyone walks into the main hallways, we get a glimpse of 6 photos here. In the first photo, there shows Sniper and Heavy's other sister, Yana, on their mistletoe. In issue 3, A Cold Day in Hell, we can see some interesting art and feeling she had towards Sniper back then too. The second photo shows Pyro with Scout's kids sitting by the fire. The third photo shows the baby baboon birthed by Team Fortress Classic Heavy, finally grown up. The Dalmatian Pyro picked up all the way at the start of the comic series in issue 1, Ring of Fire, and Archimedes, of course, you can't forget him, he's a classic, come on. We can see that Miss Pauling provided a mega turkey. More interestingly though is that it came from Bonk Farms, so that turkey is mutated beyond relief from radiation. There's a beautiful photo of Spy looking at the photo of Scout's mom and a younger Scout, and in the last photo, Scout gets his ass kicked by a shot of whiskey while Heavy's mom and Demo's mom, Tilly the Groot, laugh about it.
You guys go ahead and start, I'll be right there. Oh hey, it's you! Get in here, you big dummy! Nah, we're just starting. I even saved you a seat, you know? I'm real glad you could make it. We've been through a lot, you and us. And well, it's good to know you stuck around. After everything we've been through. Alright, come on. Let's eat before this gets embarrassing. Miss Pauling bought us a turkey. But just remember, we couldn't have done any of this without you.
Thank you, Scout, Soldier, Heavy. Thank you, Team Fortress. Oh, I'm getting all emotional here, guys. We can see paper cutouts of the Sandman's baseball, a sticky bomb, and a rocket on the wall, in addition to some team-colored cupcakes. Scout is standing front and center with Spy right behind him, followed by Demo Man, Tilly the Groot, Demo Man's mum. The fully grown baboon is hanging off the drapes there in the background. Archimedes is sitting on the Islander, which is actually a character. Soldier's kid, General Patton Doe, is being lifted up by his aunt, Heavy's other sister, Yana, with Heavy and his mother in front of him. Medic is getting ready to cut the turkey with the bone saw, while the ghost of Merasmus and Tom Jones sings above him. Zahana is getting hugs from Georgia Washington, her daughter, and her other sister, Bronslava, while her husband, Soldier, sits at the table, still in uniform, funnily enough, with a spoon in hand, about to eat Captain Dan soup. Odd choice to reference this in the final scene where Scout's mother and Scout's kids are missing, but sure. Captain Dan is mentioned a couple times throughout TF2, even having a cosmetic base around him being the captain's cocktails. You can also see the soup being advertised in a lot of TF2 maps. Pyro and the Dalmatian can also be seen, well, sort of seen, really shoved them in there, didn't they? Staring at the turkey at the bottom there. And closing us off, we have Sniper who's toasting a glass of Demo, and Engineer who's sitting front and fucking center despite being a mysterious ass to everyone else throughout the entire comic and really only showing up at the very end. There are also 2 plates of sandwiches seen right in the center. And the final page of the TF2 comic series, after a 7-year wait, 11 years in the making, Saxton Hale references the first comic TF2 ever created back in 2009. What a journey it's been, huh?